Have you ever imagined yourself driving through a quiet, foggy night when a mysterious passenger gets into your car but never gets out? Stories like these sound like something straight out of a horror movie, yet they're being told with eerie detail by taxi drivers and rideshare drivers all over the world. The most unsettling part? Many of these accounts share strikingly similar supernatural elements, enough to make even the most skeptical raise an eyebrow. In a world where radios tune into stations that no longer exist, headlights reveal more than they should, and a simple rearview mirror becomes a gateway to the unknown, every ride has the potential to become a chilling, unexplainable experience. It's in this atmosphere of midnight fear and morbid curiosity that tales of faceless figures, ghostly women, abandoned houses, and supernatural omens begin to surface. These aren't just ghost stories, they are shared experiences, passed from driver to driver like silent warnings. Some drivers swear it's all real. Others refuse to talk about it. But nearly all agree on one thing: after certain rides, you don't return the same. If you've ever felt a sudden chill during a trip or noticed an odd silence between stops, maybe these stories make more sense than you thought. And if you haven't experienced anything like it, get ready. After hearing these paranormal encounters, you'll never look at a rideshare vehicle the same way again. So are you ready to take a ride beyond logic? Buckle up and keep an eye on the back seat. Anyone who works the night shift knows the darkness hides more than just silence. It's after midnight that taxi drivers and app-based drivers start crossing paths with the hidden side of the city. Paranormal stories, no matter how absurd they may sound, begin to echo with disturbing consistency. Apparitions, mysterious passengers, that sudden icy chill that creeps into the car, this has all become part of an urban folklore passed among those who live behind the wheel. Some drivers avoid certain routes, especially those near rural areas or abandoned buildings. Why? Because of stories about faceless figures appearing in the rearview mirror, or ride requests that vanish from the app as soon as they arrive at the pickup point. Others talk about the sensation of a weight in the back seat, even when the car is completely empty. Which raises the question: is it just your imagination, or is something trying to make contact? The community sharing these stories has grown so large that entire online groups now discuss unexplainable encounters like they're part of the job. Some believe these tales serve as warnings, a kind of unofficial guidebook to surviving the night. The strangest part? Drivers from completely different cities who don't even know each other often describe the same ghostly woman or the same thick fog appearing out of nowhere. That fear of the night shifts into something more real when these accounts start aligning with old urban legends. One of the most well-known stories involves a taxi driver who claimed he saw a passenger literally walk through the car door and disappear before saying a word. Later, he discovered the man's description matched someone who had died nearby years before. Since then, drivers call that stretch of road the Forgetting Curve. Each story, whether lived or told, reinforces the feeling that there's something out there, something beyond our understanding, that chooses moving cars to make its presence known. Coincidence? Maybe. But anyone who's heard enough of these stories starts to think twice before accepting a late-night ride. And this is only the beginning. Alejandra wasn't one to talk much. But all it took was someone mentioning paranormal stories in a group of night drivers for her to finally say it: "I saw one. And no, it wasn't a dream." She said the ride started like any other. A calm, tired-looking woman asked to be dropped off on a quiet street. It was damp, fog drifted through the air. But everything changed on the drive back with the car completely empty. In the quiet hum of the engine, Alejandra glanced at the rearview mirror and saw a faceless figure sitting in the back seat, exactly where the woman had been. The presence felt so real that she swore she felt the seat sink under its weight. A horrible stench filled the car, like burnt flesh mixed with mold. A wave of cold ran down her spine. She tried to ignore it, but the figure didn't disappear. It didn't blink. It didn't move. It just was a shadowy, motionless form, with no face, but a presence so heavy it seemed to fill the space. The fear gripped her like a vice. This was a woman who had driven for years without a single strange experience, and suddenly, she could barely breathe. In a moment of panic, she screamed, "Get out! This isn't your place!" And just like that, the figure vanished like a bubble bursting. Since that night, Alejandra changed her routines. She avoids certain areas, never drives alone on too quiet nights, and now hangs a small mirror with red ribbons from her rearview, a ritual taught by an old woman said to ward off dark energy. And no matter how many try to tell her it was all in her head, she always says the same thing when the seat sinks and the smell changes: "You know, that was real." Her chilling experience was later shared on a driver's forum where others admitted to seeing the same faceless figure, often after dropping off unusually quiet passengers. Coincidence or pattern? Alejandra's story was far from an isolated case. And as you're about to see, the back seat of a car can hold much more than a passenger. Carlos had been a taxi driver for over 20 years and swore he had never experienced anything out of the ordinary. That is, until one cold night just before midnight. A tall man in a dark suit, with a raspy voice, got into his car and asked to be taken to a remote village about an hour outside the city. There was fog, the road was barely lit, and yet the man seemed oddly calm. He barely spoke during the ride and stared out the window the entire time as if he knew exactly where he was going. The road wound through dense forest, and at one point the GPS completely froze. The man calmly told Carlos to turn onto a dirt path, saying he knew the way. When they reached a narrow opening in the trees, the man asked to get out. Carlos, uneasy, watched as the passenger walked straight into the darkness and vanished into the fog. That alone would have been strange enough, but it didn't end there. 2 days later, while waiting for a pickup at the airport, Carlos spotted the same man again, only now he looked healthier, younger, almost glowing. Shocked, Carlos walked up to him. But the man didn't seem to recognize him. He claimed he had never been to that city. A chill ran down Carlos' spine. How could someone who sat in your car, spoke to you, and walked into the woods just not remember? Carlos shared the story with other drivers in an online forum, and to his surprise, one of them claimed he had picked up the same man weeks earlier, also during a foggy night. The details matched: dark suit, raspy voice, distant stare. That's when they began to wonder, is this some kind of wandering spirit? A mysterious passenger that appears only at certain hours, on lonely roads? That kind of unexplainable experience opens a haunting question: is it possible that certain entities take on a physical form, just long enough to get to where they need to go? And if that's true, what's the real destination? The next story adds another layer of terror and features a figure just as disturbing, if not more. On the same road where Carlos dropped off the mysterious man, another strange case caught everyone's attention. This time, it was Daniel, a rideshare driver used to taking passengers through rural areas. One foggy morning, he was driving along that winding road when he saw an elderly woman standing completely still, right at the edge of a sharp curve. What unsettled him most was her smile, wide, frozen, as if she had been waiting just for him. Daniel slammed the brakes. Instinctively, he rolled down his window and asked if she needed help. She didn't respond. Just stood there, with that eerie smile and old-fashioned clothing. The silence around them felt heavy, thick, like the fog itself was listening. Too afraid to step out of the car, he slowly steered around her and kept driving, checking his mirrors constantly as the dread inside him grew. For a few minutes, everything seemed calm. But then he saw her again. this time, running after the car. Yes, the same motionless old woman from the curve was now chasing him, that same terrifying smile still frozen on her face. And her movement? Completely unnatural, like her feet weren't even touching the ground. He hit the gas, but she somehow kept pace, gliding alongside the trees and the road. The chase continued until Daniel crossed a small bridge over a creek, a place known by locals as a threshold, where the living and the dead are said to almost meet. The moment he passed the bridge, she vanished. Once in town, he drove straight to a gas station where other drivers usually gathered. When he told them what happened, two of them immediately confirmed they had seen the same woman on different nights, in different spots along that same road. Her description matched perfectly: unsettling smile, old clothes, and a haunting presence. These shared experiences suggest something bigger is at play. This isn't about tired minds imagining things. There's a pattern here, a recurring figure, a specific place, and something drawing the paranormal in. And as the next story reveals, sometimes a cry for help comes straight from the other side. Miguel, a 28-year-old man, decided to share an old family story during a live stream about paranormal encounters. It was about his uncle Ramon, a seasoned taxi driver in Puebla, who claimed he had never experienced anything supernatural until he received what he described as a warning from beyond. One ordinary night, while parked near a bus terminal, Ramon saw a distressed woman approach his car. She pointed toward a nearby alley and said, "Help that man, he's lost." When he turned to look, she had vanished. Driven by a strange impulse and some suspicion, Ramon followed her direction. In that alley, he found a man disoriented, injured, and clearly confused. The man claimed to have been in an accident and separated from the group he had been traveling with. Ramon helped him into the car, gave him some water, and drove him to the nearest hospital. As if that wasn't strange enough, things took an even more bizarre turn in the waiting room. While they waited, the man saw an old photograph hanging in a frame on the wall. He froze, pointed at it, and said softly, "That's my mother." Ramon leaned in and was stunned. It was the same woman who had appeared earlier asking for help. Same clothes, same hairstyle, same determined eyes. The most chilling detail? The photo was part of a memorial. The woman had died over 10 years ago. That supernatural sign shook Ramon to his core. He began to believe that certain family bonds stretch beyond death. And in moments of true danger, some invisible force can step in to protect. Since that day, Ramon started wearing a small medallion with the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe, a simple gesture, he said, to thank the woman he never met, but who somehow guided him that night. Many drivers have shared similar experiences, moments when they felt compelled to change routes, stop at a certain spot, or look behind them for no reason at all. Some call it instinct. Others say it's intuition. But for a growing number of them, these moments feel like something deeper, a nudge from the other side. And as you'll see in the next story, it's not always easy to tell when the supernatural is playing games or when the game turns deadly. Rodrigo had just been licensed as a taxi driver and was excited about his new job. Young, curious, and still untouched by night terrors, he used to laugh at the ghost stories told by veteran drivers. That was until one Friday night, when dispatch called and asked him to pick up a passenger from a remote street outside the city. A welcome prank, an older driver joked. Rodrigo had no idea what he was walking into. When he arrived, he found an abandoned, partially burned house surrounded by overgrown grass and a strange, lingering smell of smoke in the air. It looked odd, but Rodrigo decided to step out and check. The fog was getting thicker, and the silence was almost painful. That's when he saw movement through a shattered window, silhouettes, shifting inside what seemed to be an old living room. As he took a cautious step forward, he heard crackling like wood smoldering under fire. The figures began to emerge, one by one: burned bodies, charred clothes, hollow eyes. At first, it felt like part of the prank. But this wasn't staged. It was a nightmare made real. Rodrigo bolted for the car, but just as he reached for the door, he felt one of them grab the handle. He managed to lock himself in and start the engine. But in the rearview mirror there they were. Still standing. Still staring. He didn't stop driving until he reached a gas station, where another driver helped calm him down. When he explained what happened, the mood changed immediately. The prank, they said, had been pulled before, but no one ever mentioned what really went on at that house. Years earlier, the house had burned down under mysterious circumstances. A whole family had perished. Since then, countless stories had surfaced: screams in the night, sightings of charred figures, even fake taxi calls originating from the address. The dispatch center began avoiding the location altogether. Still, every now and then, someone new would be chosen to have that experience. Rodrigo insists to this day they wanted to be seen. They wanted their story told. Among drivers in the region, an unspoken rule has since been established: if the address ends on that street, and it's late at night, no one accepts the ride. Because out there, the joke stopped being funny a long time ago. And now, after so many accounts, the question lingers in the air: how many of these stories are mere coincidence, and how many are messages that keep repeating until someone finally listens? Whether you're a rideshare driver, a taxi operator, or just a casual passenger, we've all had moments where something felt off. But what if, instead of brushing it off, we started paying attention? What if these paranormal signals were clues leading us towards something bigger, waiting to be understood? Maybe the real question isn't do you believe? But rather, are you ready for the day something unexplainable happens to you? A faceless figure. A ghostly woman. A moment that defies logic. It might sound unlikely until it happens. And when it does, will you know what to do? Or will you become part of the silent statistics, the ones who never speak of it again? Because in sharing and listening to these experiences, we get closer to something far beyond nighttime fear. We begin to understand that the road holds more than just curves and headlights. It is the setting for encounters with the unexplainable, and maybe, just maybe, each of us is destined to live through at least one of these stories. So, have you ever experienced something similar? Or do you know someone who picked up a passenger that vanished, or saw something strange in the back seat? Share your story in the comments. You might just help someone who's too afraid to look in their rearview mirror tonight. And if you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you'll never miss a new story or the signs that come with it.